What happens when the man you've been mocking turns out to be your boss? This restaurant staff found out in the most humbling way possible. And trust me, you won't believe how this story ends. Stay with me because this isn't just a story about karma. It's a powerful lesson about respect, humility, and how quick judgments can cost you more than you think. It was just another ordinary morning in downtown Dallas. The sun was shining brightly, casting a golden hue over the bustling city. The streets were alive with energy, cars honking, people rushing to work, coffee cups in hand, and life moving fast as usual. But amidst the daily hustle, there was a man named Elijah. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, but there was something about him, a quiet dignity, a presence that spoke volumes without needing to say much. Elijah was a delivery driver, not the kind of job that turns heads or demands respect in places like Bellandria's Fine Dining, one of the most prestigious high-end restaurants in the city. A place known for its luxury, exclusivity, and, let's be honest, its pretentious reputation. But today's delivery wasn't just another stop on Elijah's route. It was the beginning of something no one at that restaurant could have ever predicted. Elijah's truck rumbled into the narrow alley behind Bellandria's, the designated spot where deliveries were made. The air smelled faintly of freshly baked bread, mixed with the metallic tang of the city. He parked, grabbed his clipboard, and began unloading crates, organic produce, specialty seafood, all the high-end ingredients that kept the restaurant's elite customers satisfied. With practiced ease, Elijah stacked the boxes on a dolly and wheeled them toward the large silver door marked Staff Only. As he knocked twice, faint laughter echoed from inside. Not the joyful, carefree kind of laughter. No, this was different. It was sharp, dismissive, the kind of laughter that makes your chest tighten because you know it's directed at you. The door swung open. Standing there was a young man in a crisp white chef's jacket. His face twisted in annoyance, as if Elijah's very presence was an inconvenience. Behind him, two other staff members peeked out, one stifling a chuckle, the other rolling her eyes. "Deliveries are supposed to come earlier," the young chef snapped, his tone dripping with irritation. Elijah didn't flinch. He simply held up the invoice. "I'm right on schedule, sir. Fresh seafood from Gulf Coast imports and the organic greens you requested." Polite, professional, calm. The chef waved him off. "Whatever, just bring it in, and don't block the kitchen entrance." Elijah pushed the dolly inside, feeling the weight of their stares like invisible hands pressing down on him. Condescending glances, whispered jokes. It wasn't new to him. He'd seen it before. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Elijah had a secret, a truth that was going to change everything. As Elijah maneuvered the dolly through the pristine kitchen, the contrast was striking. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, casting a soft glow on marble floors polished to perfection. Chefs moved with precision, their knives gleaming under the lights. It was luxury, elegance, and sophistication. On the surface. But beneath that polished exterior was something uglier. "Make sure you're not blocking the chef's station," barked a woman in a sharp black suit, not even bothering to look at him. "Yes, ma'am," Elijah replied evenly, his tone respectful but firm. Nearby, two waiters stood folding napkins, glancing over their shoulders with smug grins. $5 says he messes something up in the next 10 minutes, one whispered, just loud enough for Elijah to hear. The other snickered in response. Elijah didn't react, not yet. Years in this business had taught him that people like this weren't worth his energy, but inside, his patience was wearing thin. As he stacked the boxes neatly near the walk-in fridge, another voice chimed in. "You'd think someone delivering to a place like this would at least dress better." More laughter. Elijah glanced down at his clean, pressed uniform. Practical, professional, but clearly not good enough for them. Still, he said nothing, because Elijah knew something they didn't, and soon enough, their laughter would fade. After unloading the first batch, Elijah stepped outside to grab the next set of boxes. The morning heat had crept in, beads of sweat forming on his brow as he pushed the heavy dolly back toward the kitchen. Inside, the laughter continued, louder this time. They didn't even bother to lower their voices. When Elijah re-entered, the head chef, Damien, stood by the counter, inspecting the seafood Elijah had delivered. Damien turned up his nose slightly, poking at the crates as if they were beneath him. "Is this the best they could send?" Damien muttered, just loud enough for Elijah to hear. Elijah paused. "If there's an issue with the quality, I can contact the supplier." "No, no," Damien interrupted with a dismissive wave. "Just drop it off and leave. We've got more important things to focus on." The final straw came when one of the kitchen staff pointed to an empty crate near the door. "Hey, delivery guy, you missed a box," he called out with a smirk. Elijah walked over, bent down to pick it up, only to realize it was empty. Another round of laughter erupted. "Just messing with you, man. Relax a little." Elijah didn't respond. He simply placed the empty crate back where it was, finished his work, and handed the signed invoice to Damien. Damien didn't even bother looking at him, just scribbled his signature with an air of annoyance. "You can go now," he said curtly, not even offering a simple thank you. Elijah nodded. "Have a good day." But just as he reached the door, one of the waiters muttered under his breath, "Yeah, go back to wherever you came from." Elijah stopped, his hand resting on the door handle. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Everyone froze. Elijah turned slowly, his gaze meeting the waiter's. There was no anger in his eyes, just a calm, quiet confidence. "I came here," Elijah said, his voice steady, "to deliver something you clearly need more of: respect." The room stayed silent as Elijah walked out. But the real surprise? It was still to come. And in just a few hours, they were going to find out exactly who Elijah really was. Elijah leaned against the side of his truck, taking a deep breath. The delivery was done, but the weight of the morning lingered like an unwanted guest. He'd dealt with disrespect before, plenty of times, but something about today felt different. Maybe it was the smugness in their voices, the comfort in their mockery, or the fact that they didn't even consider he might be more than what they assumed. He wiped the sweat from his brow and glanced up at the restaurant's polished sign. Belle Andrea's Fine Dining, etched in elegant gold letters, shining like a symbol of exclusivity. But here's the twist they never saw coming. Just 3 weeks ago, Elijah had signed the final papers that made him the new owner of this very restaurant. Yes, the same place where they mocked him, dismissed him, and treated him like nothing. Elijah Reynolds was their boss. But Elijah's journey didn't start here, not even close. He didn't inherit wealth or stumble into success. No, Elijah's story was built on grit, sacrifice, and relentless determination. Growing up in a small town in Louisiana, Elijah's family didn't have much. Opportunities were scarce, and expectations for someone like him were even scarcer. His parents worked tirelessly, his mother, a nurse pulling double shifts, and his father juggling odd jobs just to keep food on the table. But Elijah had a dream. At 16, he got his first job, as a dishwasher in a local diner. While scrubbing plates, he'd steal glances at the chefs, fascinated by the art of cooking. The hustle of the kitchen, the energy of the restaurant. It wasn't glamorous, but to Elijah, it was a window into a world he wanted to be part of. He worked his way up, first as a line cook, then as a kitchen manager. He saved every penny, learned everything he could about the restaurant business, and eventually opened his first small restaurant. It wasn't fancy, but it was his. From there, his vision grew, and so did his success. So, when the opportunity came to buy Belle Andrea's, Elijah didn't hesitate. It was risky, but he saw potential, not just in the food, but in creating a culture where everyone felt valued. But before he made any changes, Elijah wanted to see the restaurant for what it truly was, not the polished version presented during interviews or staff meetings. He wanted to see how people acted when they thought no one important was watching, and today, he got his answer. After leaving the restaurant, Elijah didn't head home. Instead, he went straight to his office to prepare for a staff meeting scheduled for 3 p.m. He had told the restaurant manager, Greg, to gather the entire team, chefs, waiters, kitchen staff, everyone. The announcement had been vague. No one knew why the meeting was happening, but Elijah knew exactly what he was going to say. At 2:59 p.m., the staff gathered in the main dining room. Some leaned casually against the walls, arms crossed, clearly annoyed at the disruption. Damien, the arrogant head chef, stood with his usual smug expression, whispering to a server, "I bet it's some corporate nonsense. Just another suit wasting our time." The room buzzed with low chatter until the doors opened and Elijah walked in, still dressed in his delivery uniform, still calm. But this time, his presence hit differently. The room fell silent. Confused glances were exchanged. Damien squinted, then chuckled. "Wait, this guy again? What's he doing here?" Laughter rippled through the crowd, but Elijah didn't flinch. He walked to the center of the room, stood tall, and let the silence settle. Then, with a slight smile, he spoke. "Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elijah Reynolds, and as of 3 weeks ago, I'm the new owner of Belle Andrea's Fine Dining." You could hear a pin drop. The laughter, gone. The smug smiles, gone. Damien's face went pale, his jaw slightly slack. The servers stared, wide-eyed. Greg, the manager, nearly dropped his clipboard. "Wait, what?" Damien finally stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're the owner?" Elijah nodded. "That's right, the same guy you mocked this morning, the one you thought was just a delivery driver." The tension in the room was thick, uncomfortable, heavy. No one dared to speak. Elijah continued, his voice calm but firm. "I didn't come here today just to deliver boxes. I came to deliver a message, a lesson, if you will. Not about food or fine dining, but about respect." He let his words hang in the air, letting the silence do the work. The shame was written on their faces. Elijah paced slowly, locking eyes with the very people who had laughed at him hours earlier. "You judged me based on my uniform. You dismissed me because of what you assumed about my job. But the truth is, respect isn't something you reserve for people who look important. It's something you give to everyone." Damien shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat like he wanted to say something. But Elijah wasn't done. "What I saw today wasn't just unprofessional. It was ugly. And if that's how you treat the people who support this restaurant behind the scenes, I can only imagine how you treat others when you think no one's watching." A heavy silence settled over the room. No excuses, no laughter, just the sting of the truth. Elijah took a deep breath, his voice softening slightly. "I've worked every job in this industry, dishwasher, line cook, delivery driver, and now owner. But none of those jobs made me more or less worthy of respect." He glanced at Damien, whose bravado had crumbled. "Chef Damien," Elijah said, his tone firm but fair. "Leadership isn't about barking orders or acting superior. It's about setting the tone, creating a culture where everyone feels valued. And starting today, that's exactly what's going to happen here." Elijah looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every staff member. "If you can't treat people with basic human decency, this isn't the place for you. Because in my restaurant, respect isn't optional, it's required." The room was heavy with silence, the kind that lingers long after the words have been spoken. Elijah stood tall, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the sea of stunned faces before him. The arrogance that had once filled the room was gone, replaced by an uncomfortable mix of shame, regret, and disbelief. Damien, the once smug head chef, shifted awkwardly, his face flushed. The servers, who had shared jokes and whispered mockeries earlier, now avoided Elijah's gaze, their eyes fixed on the polished floor beneath them. Finally, Damien broke the silence. I didn't mean any disrespect," he stammered, his voice low, almost unrecognizable compared to his usual commanding tone. "It was just, we didn't know." Elijah's gaze was steady, unwavering. "That's the problem, Damien," he replied softly. "Respect shouldn't be based on what you know about someone. It should be the default. Whether I'm wearing a suit or a delivery uniform, it shouldn't change how you treat me, or anyone else." The words hit harder than any reprimand, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. Elijah paused, letting his message sink in. Then, with a deep breath, he continued. "I didn't come here today to embarrass anyone. I came to set a standard. This restaurant isn't just about fine dining. It's about culture. And culture starts with respect for our guests, our colleagues, and even the people delivering the food that keeps us running." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every staff member. Some nodded subtly, others still processing the weight of their actions. But one thing was clear. Something had shifted. Elijah's words weren't just a lecture. They were a mirror, reflecting the ugly truths people often choose to ignore. After a brief silence, Elijah spoke again. "I believe in second chances, but second chances come with responsibility." He turned to Damien. "As head chef, you set the tone for the kitchen. If you're willing to change, prove prove it. Lead by example, not just with your cooking, but with your character. Damien swallowed hard, his pride visibly bruised. But this wasn't about ego anymore. It was about accountability. "I will," Damien replied quietly. I didn't realize how much I'd lost sight of that." Elijah gave a small nod, then turned to the rest of the staff. "The same goes for all of you. We're not here just to serve food. We're here to create experiences. And that starts with how we treat people, not just the customers, but each other." After the meeting, the staff slowly dispersed, each person quietly reflecting on the lesson they'd just learned. The restaurant felt different, not because the decor had changed, but because the people had. In the following weeks, Elijah's leadership began to reshape the culture at Bellandria's. Staff meetings weren't just about numbers and schedules. They were about growth, accountability, and teamwork. The kitchen, once filled with arrogance and ego, became a place of collaboration and mutual respect. Damien, to his credit, took Elijah's words to heart. He became not just a better chef, but a better leader, someone who led with humility rather than superiority. The servers who once sneered learned the value of empathy, treating every guest and every colleague with the dignity they deserved. And Elijah? He didn't sit in an office, hidden away from the day-to-day operations. He was present, hands-on, a constant reminder that respect isn't something you demand, it's something you earn. But this story isn't just about a restaurant, it's about all of us. How often do we judge people based on what we see on the surface? How often do we assume someone's worth based on their job, their appearance, or the role they play in our lives? And how often do we forget that behind every uniform is a story? A person with dreams, struggles, and potential we might never know unless we choose to look beyond our assumptions. Elijah's story is a powerful reminder that respect isn't reserved for titles or positions. It's a basic human decency that costs nothing but means everything. Months after that unforgettable day, Bellandria's had transformed, not just in profits, but in purpose. It became a place where people didn't just come for the food, but for the experience, the warmth, the authenticity, the culture of respect that Elijah had built. And one evening, as Elijah walked through the restaurant, he noticed something small but significant. A new delivery driver had just arrived, unloading boxes near the kitchen door. Damien, yes, that Damien, walked over, not with a dismissive glare, but with a smile. "Need a hand with that?" he asked genuinely. The driver nodded, surprised but grateful. Elijah smiled to himself, knowing that the real change had taken root. Because at the end of the day, true success isn't measured by how high you've climbed, but by how you treat the people you meet along the way. Call to action, engaging the audience. If this story made you think, even for a moment, about how we treat others, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated, or have you underestimated someone else? We'd love to hear your story. And remember, respect is free, but its impact is priceless. The changes at Bellandria's didn't stop within the restaurant's walls. Elijah's story, his unexpected reveal, his powerful message about respect, began to ripple beyond the fine dining establishment. News spread, not because Elijah sought attention, but because people who witnessed that day couldn't stop talking about it. A simple story about a delivery man turned boss became a powerful example shared in business seminars, leadership workshops, and even classroom discussions. It wasn't just a lesson about hospitality. It was a lesson about humanity. Local business owners started reflecting on their own workplace cultures. Conversations were sparked. Are we treating every employee with the respect they deserve? Do we judge people based on appearances without knowing their story? How can we create environments where kindness isn't an afterthought, but the foundation? Elijah never intended to start a movement, but sometimes the most powerful change comes from simply doing the right thing. One evening, months after that fateful staff meeting, Elijah was leaving the restaurant after another busy day. As he stepped outside, he noticed a young man standing near the entrance, nervously holding a notepad. The young man hesitated before approaching. "Excuse me. Are you Elijah Reynolds?" he asked quietly. Elijah smiled. "I am. Can I help you?" The young man nodded, his voice trembling slightly. "I just wanted to thank you. I heard your story about how you handled that situation with the restaurant staff. It inspired me. I've been working as a janitor, and I used to feel invisible, like no one noticed me. But your story reminded me that my worth isn't tied to my job title. Elijah listened, moved by the young man's words. "What's your name?" he asked. "Tyler," the young man replied. Elijah reached out, shaking his hand firmly. "Tyler, never forget this. Your job doesn't define you. How you carry yourself, how you treat others, and how you show up every day. That's what matters. Keep your head high." The young man smiled, his eyes filled with gratitude. It was a brief exchange, but for Tyler, it meant everything. And for Elijah, it was another reminder that respect isn't just about big moments. It's about the small ones too. Years passed, and Bellandria's fine dining flourished, not just as a restaurant, but as a symbol of transformation. Elijah continued to grow his business empire, owning multiple restaurants, each one built on the same principles: respect, integrity, and humility. But one day, something unexpected happened. Elijah received an invitation to speak at a prestigious business conference. The topic: leadership that inspires change. As Elijah stood on stage, addressing a packed auditorium, he began with the same story, the day he walked into Bellandria's as a delivery man. He described the laughter, the judgment, and the moment he revealed his true identity. But then he paused, looking out at the audience. "You see, this story isn't just about me. It's about all of us. We've all been Elijah at some point, underestimated, overlooked, judged for how we look instead of who we are. But here's the thing. We've all been Damien too. Quick to judge, quick to assume, forgetting that behind every face is a story we don't know." The room was silent, every word sinking in like a stone in still water. Elijah continued, "Leadership isn't about titles or power. It's about how you treat people when you think no one's watching. It's about creating spaces where respect isn't earned. It's given freely because every human deserves it." When he finished, the audience erupted in applause, not just for his success, but for the powerful truth he had shared. Back at Bellandria's, as the years rolled on, Elijah remained grounded. Despite his success, he never forgot his roots. Every morning, he'd still visit the kitchen, greet the staff, and even help unload deliveries, reminding everyone that no job was beneath him because respect doesn't come with a job description. One day, as he watched the staff working together, laughing, collaborating, treating each other with kindness, he smiled. Not because he had built a thriving restaurant, but because he had built something more valuable, a culture where people mattered, where respect wasn't conditional, where kindness was the standard, not the exception. And maybe that's the real legacy we should all strive for. So, what about you? Have you ever been underestimated? Or maybe, without realizing it, have you judged someone too quickly? Share your story in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about respect, kindness, and the lessons we've learned along the way. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think, feel, or reflect, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another inspiring story. And remember, respect is free to give, but its impact can last a lifetime. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay humble, and never underestimate the power of a simple act of respect. Om, Om,